The rain pounded violently against the window of the roadside diner that night, isolating the small establishment from the rest of the world. Maya was there, hunched over, clutching the phone as if it were a grenade about to explode. On the other end of the line, the voice of her ex-husband's lawyer, Mr. Henderson, sounded cold and impersonal, driving every word like a nail into the coffin of her hope. It isn't about money, Maya. It's about stability. Judge Harrison was immovable in today's preliminary hearing. If you don't have a permanent roof over your head and a stable family structure to present by noon tomorrow, Lily comes with us to the mansion. You have exactly 14 hours, no house, no husband, no daughter, end of story. The call ended with a dry click. Maya slowly pulled the phone away, feeling the blood freeze in her veins. She looked out at the dark parking lot where her old car was parked under the pouring rain, filled with blankets in the back seat. That was her home. That was the future she had to offer. The pain was so sharp she couldn't contain it. Maya didn't scream in anger. She crumbled. She leaned her forehead against the cold Formica counter and began to cry. A convulsive, painful sob that shook her shoulders. Between sobs, she let out the sentence that had been trapped in her throat, speaking loud enough only for the universe to hear her plea. My God, I need a miracle. I need a husband and a house by tomorrow, or I'm going to lose my little girl. Maya's miracle was right next to her, but she didn't know it yet. Do you believe that fate puts the right people in our path during our hardest moments? If so, leave a like and subscribe. Get your tissues ready, because what this stranger is about to do will restore your faith in humanity. Watch until the end to see the twist in the courtroom. The diner was quiet, but at table number 4, those words hit Darius like a physical punch. He was there with his 5-year-old daughter Amara trying to have dinner after another exhausting day in construction. Darius was a strong black man with calloused hands and kind eyes that carried the sadness of someone who had already lost a lot in life. His deep brown skin still dusted with the day's work, and his tight curls flattened from his hard hat. When he heard Maya's crying and understood what was at stake, a mother about to be separated from her daughter, his protective instinct triggered immediately. He looked at his own daughter, Amara, who was distracted playing with her French fries, and imagined the unbearable pain of being separated from her. He knew he couldn't just sit there watching. He needed to act because it was the right thing to do. Darius wiped his dark brown hands on a napkin, stood up calmly, and walked to the counter. His firm steps stopped beside Maya. With a gentle gesture, he placed a $20 bill next to her hand, not as charity, but as a way to get her attention. "Hey," he said in a deep and comforting voice, "save those tears. No mother should have to cry like that." Maya lifted her head with a start, her eyes red and swollen, and tried to compose herself, quickly embarrassed to have been seen in that state. "I'm sorry, I'm just leaving. I didn't mean to bother anyone." "You're not bothering anyone," Darius replied, keeping his tone gentle but firm. "I couldn't help but overhear. You said you need a house and a family to show a judge tomorrow so you don't lose your daughter. Is that right?" Maya hesitated, defensive, hugging her purse like a shield. "That's none of your business. I don't know who you are, but I don't need charity." Darius smiled slightly, an honest smile that disarmed the tension. He saw the pride in her eyes and decided he wouldn't humiliate her by offering pure charity. He would give her a mission so they would be on equal ground. "It's not charity," Darius said, leaning in a little closer so his voice wouldn't travel across the room. "I have a big house in the suburbs, just a few miles from here. 3 bedrooms, a fenced yard, everything a family court judge likes to see in a report. I live there alone with my daughter, and honestly, we have plenty of room. I can help you with this hearing. You need a husband and an address. Consider it done." Maya looked at him stunned, trying to find the catch, the hidden trick. "Why would you do this? You don't even know me. Nobody does anything for anyone for free these days." That was when Darius looked back at table number 4, where little Amara had just knocked over the ketchup bottle, staining her hands, the table, and her new dress with a giant red spot. The girl looked at her father with wide eyes that said, "I messed up." Darius let out a short laugh and turned back to Maya, using the moment to break the ice. "Look, I'd do it anyway because no child deserves to be away from their mother. But since we're doing this, if you could give me a hand over there, he pointed to the ketchup mess. I'd appreciate it. I'm great at framing walls and building roofs, but I'm a complete disaster at getting ketchup stains out of princess dresses. Let's call it a fair trade. I give you the house and the name. You help me not go crazy with that mess. Maya looked at the messy little girl, then at the kind man in front of her, a black single dad standing there with quiet courage. For the first time in months, the persistent cold in her stomach seemed to fade. She felt hope, but she was also a mother who lived on the streets, and caution was her second skin, the only mechanism that kept her alive. She wiped her face with the back of her hand and looked Darius in the eyes. Seriously, are you being serious? Because I can't play games with my daughter's life. If this is some kind of cruel joke, I'd rather stay in the car. Darius reached out his hand, ignoring the work grime on his shirt, his eyes conveying a sincerity that could not be faked. I have never been more serious in my life. Maya took a deep breath, making the riskiest decision of her existence, but keeping her guard up. All right, I'll help with the dress, but as for going to your house, I'm driving my own car following you. And before we take one step out of this Jerry's, I'm going to take a photo of your license plate and your driver's license. I'm sending it to my sister right now with your location. If you're some kind of crazy person, the police will know exactly where to look for me. Darius wasn't offended. On the contrary, he nodded with respect, pulling his wallet out and handing it to her. Fair enough, you're a good mother, Maya. Very careful, take whatever photos you need. Let's do this the right way. The trip to Darius's house was a 10-minute drive that felt like it lasted hours. Maya's old Honda followed his pickup truck through the curtain of rain. When they arrived at house number 452, a beautiful American colonial-style residence with a wide porch, Maya felt a knot of anxiety and relief. As they entered, the reality of Darius's life became clear. It wasn't a dirty house in terms of hygiene, but it was a portrait of male loneliness. There were piles of clean laundry on the sofa waiting to be folded for weeks. Toys scattered across the living room like landmines and empty pizza boxes on the granite kitchen counter. On one wall, a framed photo of a beautiful black family, a younger Darius, a radiant black woman, and a toddler, Amara, with tiny braids watched over the chaos like a ghost of what once was. Darius turned on the light and scratched the back of his neck, visibly embarrassed. Welcome. Sorry about the mess. Since my wife Keisha passed away, I try to keep the lights on and Amara fed, but sometimes work and solo parenting get the best of me. I make a living building homes for others, but I forgot how to take care of my own. Maya looked around with a clinical eye. She didn't see the mess as a problem. She saw it as a purpose. She saw a house that needed care as much as she needed security. She saw her daughter Lily step out from behind her legs and run shyly over to Amara. And within a few seconds, the two of them began laughing at the ketchup stain. Maya took off her coat, feeling a new and electric determination run through her veins. It's perfect, Darius, she said truly, smiling for the first time in years. We have 12 hours before that hearing. We are going to transform this place from top to bottom. No one is sleeping in this house until this place looks like the home of the happiest, most organized family in America. Darius let out a sigh of relief so deep his shoulders dropped 2 inches. Let's get to work, he replied, already grabbing trash bags. The front door closed, locking the storm and the fear outside. Maya felt the weight of the world diminish as the warmth of the house's heating system enveloped her. For the first time in weeks, she didn't hear the sound of rain hitting the cold metal roof of the car. She heard only the comforting hum of the refrigerator and the rhythmic tick-tock of an old clock on the living room wall. Darius didn't waste time with small talk. He walked to the hallway closet, pulled out 2 sets of clean white sheets that smelled like fabric softener and soft pillows, and signaled toward the upstairs. That is the guest room, he indicated. The girls can stay there. While Maya bathed the children, hearing Amara and Lily's laughter echo off the bathroom tiles, Darius transformed the downstairs. He moved with the agility of someone used to dealing with deadlines on construction sites. When Maya came down, she found the living room unrecognizable. The pizza boxes were gone, the toys were organized in bins, and the dining table was clean. Darius was in the kitchen focused on brewing coffee so strong the aroma filled the house. He handed a steaming mug to her, and when their hands touched for a brief second, Maya noticed he was just as nervous as she was. "Coffee is going to be our best friend until the sun comes up," Darius commented, forcing a smile. He pointed to the pile of clothes on the sofa. Without saying a word, the two of them sat side by side and began folding every piece. Maya watched his hands. They were dark brown hands that knew the weight of a hammer, but now they folded a tiny dress with a delicacy that was almost poetic. For 2 hours they worked in sync. Shirt by shirt, sock by sock, they were silently aligning two lives that, until a few hours ago, were worlds apart. Folding those clothes wasn't just a domestic duty, it was the first brick of the lie they needed to make real. At 3 in the morning, exhaustion began to take its toll, but the fear of the courtroom was a more powerful fuel. They sat at the kitchen table with a notepad and 2 pens. Greg isn't just going to look at the house Maya. He's going to try to unmask us in front of the judge. Darius warned, his voice husky. He's going to ask intimate things only a couple living under the same roof would know. Maya nodded, ready to memorize every detail. "Understood, let's do this." "What's your side of the bed?" Darius rubbed his tired eyes. "Left, always the left. And I drink my coffee black, no sugar at all. I hate sweets first thing in the morning," Maya wrote quickly. "My favorite color is teal, not just plain blue. And Lily has a severe peanut allergy. Never forget that." If the judge asked what we had for dinner last night to celebrate our union, Darius thought fast. "Tell him I made lasagna. It's the only thing my mother taught me how to cook right before she passed. Even though we had grilled cheese today for the court, we are the Sunday lasagna couple." Maya let out a short laugh, the first in a very long time. But Darius suddenly turned serious. "Maya, if they ask how long we've been together, we can't tell the truth. Judge Harrison prizes stability. If he knows we met today, he'll think you're desperate and I'm a predator. We'll say we've been together for almost 6 months, meeting at the diner where you work. That we took it slow because of the girls, but the eviction accelerated our decision to move in together to give Lily security. It's a story that makes sense. It's human." Maya looked at him, admired by his mental clarity at 4 in the morning. "You've thought of everything," she whispered. The sun rose in shades of gray over the concrete building of the family court. The air conditioning in the hallway was freezing, contrasting with the cold sweat on the palms of Maya's hands. She smoothed her best dress, a simple piece she had tried to unwrinkle as much as possible. Darius was by her side, tucked into a gray suit that seemed a bit too tight on his broad builder's shoulders. As a black man standing in that polished, echoing hallway, he felt the familiar weight of being watched, but he squared himself anyway, determined to be a shield. He wasn't a man of sweet words, but the way he positioned himself between Maya and the courtroom door, like an oak shield, told her everything she needed to know. Inside, Greg was already waiting. Her ex-husband looked like a shark in shallow waters wearing an Italian suit that probably cost more than Maya's car. He was laughing with his lawyer, overflowing with arrogant confidence. Seeing Maya enter, his smile turned into a look of pure venom. He barely registered Darius's presence, assuming he was just some acquaintance or irrelevant witness. Judge Harrison, a man with a stern face and eyes that seemed to read souls, banged the gavel. "Custody of Lily Thompson. Mr. Gregg, you claim housing negligence. The floor is yours." Greg stood up with the elegance of a predator. "Your Honor, the facts are painful. Maya Thompson is homeless. She is living inside a Honda Civic with a 6-year-old child. I have photos. I have testimonies. He threw an envelope onto the judge's desk. "My daughter is being raised in gas station parking lots. I, on the other hand, offer a mansion stability and the best private education. The choice is a matter of basic safety." Maya felt the floor disappear beneath her feet. The humiliation was public, raw, and violent. But before Greg could finish his victory speech, Darius Miller stood up. The sound of the chair dragging on the wooden floor caught everyone's attention. "That's a lie, Your Honor," Darius said, his voice resonating with a natural authority that didn't need shouting. Greg spun on his heels, laughing. "And who are you?" her driver. "My name is Darius Miller, owner of Miller Construction," he replied, ignoring Greg and speaking directly to the judge. "And Maya doesn't live in a car. She lives with me in my house at 452 Oak Street. Lily has her own room painted yellow with a real bed and a closet full of clean clothes. She slept there last night, safe, warm, and loved." The courtroom plunged into absolute silence. Greg turned red with fury. "This is a farce. They met yesterday." Darius stayed calm, remembering the story they created in the early hours. "No, Mr. Gregg. We've been together for months. We planned to take it slow, but given the difficulties Maya faced, we decided it was time to unite our family under one roof. I will not allow you to use her temporary poverty as a weapon to take a daughter from her mother." Judge Harrison looked Darius up and down. He saw the calloused, dark hands, the posture of someone who doesn't fear hard work, and the truth in his eyes. "I will grant 30 days of shared provisional custody under the supervision of social services," the judge sentenced. "If in 30 days this home proves to be a stable environment, we will keep custody with the mother. If there is any sign of fraud, the child goes to the father. Do we understand each other?" Greg hissed at Darius on the way out. 30 days, Miller. That's how long it takes me to destroy your little theater." Darius just held Maya's hand firmly and replied, "Give it your best shot, Greg." The first few days after the hearing were marked by a cautious silence, an adaptation period where every step taken inside the house at 452 Oak Street felt like a rehearsal for a high-stakes performance. Maya moved through the rooms like a guest who feared leaving marks on the carpet. She cleaned counters that were already clean and organized the pantry 3 times a day just to keep her hands busy and her mind away from the invisible timer Greg had started. Darius, for his part, tried to balance the weight of his construction company with the new and vibrant reality of having 3 female voices filling the void of his residence. He would come home from work exhausted, his boots covered in mud, and stop at the entrance inhaling the scent of basil and fabric softener that now replaced the smell of dust and loneliness. But time, that great weaver, began to turn the forced coexistence into something organic. The change didn't come in big speeches, but in the small details of an ordinary Tuesday. It happened when Darius found Maya sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by colorful books teaching Amara how to tie her own shoes. It was a task that Darius, with his limited patience and thick carpenter's fingers, had never been able to complete without the girl ending up in tears of frustration. He stopped in the doorway, watching Maya guide Amara's small brown hands, making bunny ears with the laces. When the bow finally formed, Amara let out a cry of joy, and Lily Maya's daughter started jumping beside them, celebrating the new sister's victory. Darius felt a lump in his throat. The house was no longer just a structure of wood and brick. It was gaining a soul. It also happened the following Saturday, under the pale morning sun. Maya looked out the kitchen window and saw Darius in the backyard leaning over Lily's old bicycle that had a broken chain for months. He wasn't just fixing the part, he was explaining to the girl with infinite calmness how the gears worked. Lily looked at him with an admiration Maya hadn't seen in her daughter for a long time. When the bike finally came back to life and Lily rode off across the lawn, screaming with happiness, Darius wiped his grease-stained, dark hands on his pants and looked at Maya through the glass. No words were spoken, just a nod of the head. But there, in that simple gesture, Maya realized that Darius wasn't doing this for the judge. He was doing it for them. The girls were the bridge that allowed the adults to cross the abyss of distrust. Amara and Lily didn't know about lawyers' 30-day deadlines or convenience agreements. To them, the world had become a place where there was always someone to play hide-and-seek or to tell stories before bed. Seeing that sisterhood flourish forced Maya and Darius to lower their guard. The dinners, once tense, turned into moments of sharing. Darius started telling stories about the bridges he built, about being a black contractor who turned empty lots into homes, and Maya spoke about the dreams she had of going back to school for nursing. The intimacy, however, brought the open wound of fear to the surface. In the third week, Maya's terror overflowed in the middle of the night. Darius was woken up by the muffled sound of sobbing coming from the guest room. He ran down the hallway, his heart pounding against his ribs, and found Maya sitting on the bed, hugging her knees, trembling as if she were in a blizzard. She had the recurring nightmare. The bailiff tearing Lily from her arms while Greg's face smirked in the shadows. Darius sat on the edge of the mattress, keeping a respectful distance but offering his presence as an anchor in a stormy sea. "I'm not going to let that happen," Darius said, his voice low and firm like the sound of an ancient tree. Maya looked at him, tears glistening under the moonlight. "We're lying to the government, Darius. I'm a waitress with no place to go, and you're a stranger who felt sorry for me. Greg has private investigators. He has money. He's going to find out that all of this is a theater." Darius reached out and for the first time touched her face, wiping away a tear with his rough thumb. "It's not a theater, Maya. I saw you take care of my daughter. I saw you turn this house into a home in less than a month. Greg might have money, but he never had what we have here. We are two broken people who decided not to shatter alone. This is more real than anything he has ever built." That night, the alliance between them stopped being a survival contract and became a promise of mutual protection. However, the outside world did not have the same compassion. With only 48 hours left until the final hearing, the doorbell rang with aggressive persistence. Darius opened the door and came face to face with Greg. The ex-husband was impeccable in his wool overcoat, but his smile was loaded with venom. He didn't wait for an invitation. He simply threw a thick manila envelope against Darius's chest. "Nice paperwork," Miller, Greg hissed. "But I dug deep. I found the collection lawsuits against your construction company from last year's. 3 cement suppliers suing you for late payments. And Maya, I found out she was fired for unexcused absences. Judge Harrison loves to talk about morality and stability. How do you think he's going to react when he finds out the town hero is broke and the model mother is an unstable employee?" Greg stepped closer, the breath of mint and arrogance hitting Darius's face. "I'm giving you a way out. Maya signs the custody waiver right now. I take Lily tomorrow without a scandal, and I don't show these papers to the judge. You keep your reputation intact and she doesn't go to jail for fraud. You have until tomorrow morning." Greg turned his back, walking through the light rain to his luxury car. Maya, who heard everything from the kitchen, felt the floor vanish. She picked up the papers, seeing the amounts of Darius's debts and her own termination letters. "He's going to destroy you because of me," she whispered, her voice lifeless. "Darius, it's over. I can't let him pull you down to the bottom with me. I'm going to sign. I'm going to give up my daughter." Darius snatched the papers from her hand and tore them in half with a violent motion. His eyes sparkled with cold fury. "He thinks he knows me because he read a bank statement," Darius said, his voice vibrating with determination. "He thinks your life is summed up by a time card. He made the worst mistake of his life, Maya. He came to my house to threaten my family. We are not going to surrender. We're going to that courtroom and we're going to show him that the truth doesn't fit inside a manila envelope. Wipe your face. We have a battle to win." The morning of the final judgment dawned under a thick fog that seemed to suffocate the city. The family court was a building of concrete and authority, a place where lives were decided with dry hammer strikes. Maya wore the same blue dress from the first hearing, but her posture was different. There was no longer the curve of defeat in her shoulders. Darius walked beside her, his gray suit now looking like a suit of armor. In the back seat of the car, Lily and Amara held each other's hands, a silent promise of sisterhood that no judge could cancel. As they entered the room, the tension was almost physical. Greg was sitting with his lawyers, exuding the confidence of someone who already feels victorious. He didn't even look at Maya, keeping his eyes fixed on Judge Harrison, who entered the room with a stern face, his black robe weighing heavily on his shoulders. "We are here for the final sentencing," the judge declared. "Mr. Gregg, you claim to have critical evidence of instability. Present it." Greg stood up with the calmness of an executioner. He presented the documents about Darius's debts and Maya's terminations, painting a portrait of financial chaos and disguised irresponsibility. "Your Honor, what we see here is a sand castle. Mr. Miller is in financial difficulty, and Mrs. Maya is unable to keep a job. They created a facade to deceive this court. My daughter deserves the security of my mansion, not the uncertainty of a house about to be foreclosed. He placed the papers on the judge's desk with a thud that echoed like a verdict. Judge Harrison reviewed the documents, his expression becoming increasingly dark. He looked at Darius with deep disappointment. Mr. Miller, what do you have to say about this? You presented us with a picture of solidity that does not seem to match these records. Darius stood up. He didn't use the jargon of lawyers. He walked to the center of the room and in front of everyone held out his hands, big, rough, dark brown hands marked by years of brutal work with small scars from nails and saw cuts that would never fully heal. Yes, Your Honor, Darius began, his voice filling the courtroom with honest strength. My hands are dirty. Last year was the hardest of my life. The cost of materials went up, contracts were canceled. I had to choose between paying for the asphalt of a job or keeping the mortgage on the house where my daughter sleeps. I chose the house. And do you know how I paid those debts that Mr. Gregg is using to humiliate me? I worked 16 hours a day. I carried the cement myself. I nailed the roofs myself. Darius reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a wad of original receipts crumpled and stained with sweat. He placed them before the judge. Here are the proofs of payment for every single one of those debts. I paid the last one last Friday. The government system might be slow, but my character is not. I am not a man of perfect paperwork, Your Honor. I am a man of work. And Maya. He paused, looking at her with a pride that made Maya's heart leap. She wasn't fired out of laziness. She was fired because when Lily had a fever or when Amara needed someone on the first day of school, she was there. She lost her job so she wouldn't lose the essence of being a mother. Mr. Gregg calls that instability. I call it unconditional love. Gregg interrupted, his voice loaded with venom. This is theater. They barely know each other. It's a fraud of coexistence. Darius smiled the smile of someone who knows the truth in his bones. You say you know Lily Gregg. So tell me, what is the name of the doll she won't let go of when she sleeps? What is her favorite color when she draws the sky? What is the name of the teacher she admires so much? Gregg stuttered, looking for answers in his papers, but there was no data about a child's heart in those folders. The doll's name is Daisy, Darius answered without hesitating. Her favorite color is lavender, and the teacher is Mrs. Gable. I know that because I have dinner with her every night. I know that because I help with her homework. Darius then took his phone out of his pocket. You said our home is a sham. I asked permission to show a video recorded last night, not for the court, but for the heart of this case. Gregg's lawyers shouted objections, but Judge Harrison, with a look of someone who had seen too many lies in that room, allowed it. On the small screen, Lily and Amara appeared in the kitchen covered in flour, laughing as they tried to make pancakes with Maya's help. Darius appeared in the background laughing too, while trying to clean Amara's flour-covered nose. There were no professional cameras, no rehearsal. There was only the raw joy of a family that chose each other. The judge returned the phone to Darius. He cleared his throat, his face softening for the first time. He looked at Gregg, who now seemed tiny in his arrogance. The gavel struck the sweetest sound Maya had ever heard. Mr. Gregg, the judge, declared, his voice firm. The law prioritizes the well-being of the child. And well-being is not guaranteed by bank funds, but by presence and affection. Mr. Miller proved that his debts were honored with dignity. And the video proves that Mrs. Maya built a home where before there was only a house. The father's request for custody is denied. Full custody remains with the mother at the shared residence with Mr. Darius Miller. Maya collapsed on the bench, crying with pure relief. Darius held her, wrapping her in a hug that promised the days of sleeping in the car were over forever. Gregg left the room furious, but no one cared about him anymore. That afternoon, the house on Oak Street was bathed in the light of the sunset. Darius was on the porch, finally finishing the swing he had promised the girls. Maya came out with 2 glasses of lemonade, stopping to watch Lily and Amara running through the garden with the new dog Darius had adopted for them. She walked up to him and touched his shoulder. You know, she whispered, I asked for a miracle that night at the diner. I asked for a husband and a house so I wouldn't lose my daughter. Darius put down the hammer, wiped his dark hands, and pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. And you ended up getting a stubborn carpenter and a mountain of laundry to fold, he joked. Maya smiled, feeling the warmth of his chest against hers. No, she replied, looking at the daughters who were now sisters. I got much more than that. I got a whole life. Sometimes family is not born of blood, but of the courage to reach out when the whole world decides to turn its back. The story of Maya and Darius shows us that sometimes miracles don't come from heaven, but from the hands of a stranger who decides not to look away. If you believe that true family is made of choice and sacrifice and not just blood, subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell. And before you go, comment below with the word family if you stayed until the end. I want to know who the brave hearts of our community are who believe in happy endings.